Hi, folks. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining our April action call. We're going to get started in just a few moments, so please just hold tight while we wait for some other people to join. And while we wait for a couple of other people to hop on the call, we'd love to know who you are. So if you'd like to go over to the chat, feel free to introduce yourself, your name, pronouns, where you're calling in from. We'd love to hear from you. I'll get things kicked off in just a few moments. All right. Well, I'm going to get things started for us. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for our April action call. So let's dive in. We're so happy that you could join us. This is our second member action call. Tonight, we're going to walk through what we're working on right now in and out of the State House. And most importantly, we're going to offer some concrete actions that you guys can take tonight to make an impact. Please note that this webinar is being recorded, and also, though we don't have a formal Q&A part of the agenda tonight, we do encourage you to put your questions in the chat in the Q&A function so that we can respond there. Josh, if you want to charge forward with our slides. Awesome. So a little bit about who we are. My name is Liz Harwood. I use she, her pronouns. I've been with VPIRG for a little over 4 years now, working on membership and events. I'm joined tonight by two of my wonderful colleagues, Josh and Jordan, who I'll toss over to introduce themselves. Jordan, I'll pass over to you first.
Thanks, Liz. Good evening, everyone. It's such an honor to be with you all tonight. My name is Jordan Hayden. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Democracy Vermont campaign director at VPIRG. And similar to Liz, I have been with the organization for a little over 4 years now. So yeah, happy to be with you all, calling in from Berry City. I'm going to pass it over to Josh.
Thanks, guys. And hello, everybody. My name is Josh Ferguson. I am the lead field organizer at VPIRG, and I really appreciate you giving us a portion of your evening tonight. I have been with VPIRG for almost 3 years now, and I'm calling in from Winooski.
Thanks, Josh and Jordan. And if you haven't already, we'd love to hear from you. So feel free to please introduce yourself in the chat, your name, pronouns, where you're calling in from, maybe even what's bringing you some joy. We know that joy can feel like it's in short supply, especially in this political climate right now. So if you have any to offer, especially with spring, please share. And for those of you who may be newer to VPIRG, VPIRG stands for the Vermont Public Interest Research Group. We are the largest nonprofit consumer protection and environmental advocacy organization in Vermont. But there is a lot more to us. We've been advocating for Vermonters since 1972 when we were founded on the UVM campus. And so for over 50 years, our mission has been pretty simple, to speak up for the public interest on issues where Vermonters may not always have a powerful voice. And what I think makes VPIRG distinct is how we do that work. You go to the next slide, please. Our work really happens across these 4 core areas. We have public education, so through research, events, campaigns, and calls like this, we do what we can to break down complex issues, whether it's climate policy or data privacy. We want to make sure Vermonters understand what's at stake and also how they can engage. Through grassroots engagement, this is where we build powered momentum, a core part of how we connect with thousands of Vermonters, and how we turn concern into action. And as many of you may know, we run the largest Canvas program in the state. I'm sure many of you have met a VPIRG canvasser at your door and have a story to tell. Also through State House advocacy, so to complement our grassroots engagement, we bring that people-powered energy directly into the legislature. Our policy experts work with lawmakers to shape, advance, and defend legislation that protects Vermonters. And so multiple times a year, we do what we can to get our members and coalition partners in the State House. And then through coalition building, we partner with organizations, businesses, and community groups to build a broad support and make meaningful change together. Next slide. And in terms of what we work on, our legislative priorities span 6 core areas. You can see that we are growing, so we have 2 new ones this year at the bottom. But as always, we have our climate and energy, which is where we advance policies to reduce emissions and accelerate the transition to clean energy, environmental health and zero waste, where we're working to reduce toxic exposure and improve recycling and our waste systems. Consumer protection, we're especially focused on data privacy, corporate accountability. Democracy, we're really focused on protecting voting rights and ensuring Vermonters can participate in our political system. And then this year we've dived into immigration, advocating for fairness, dignity, due process, and healthcare, working toward a more accessible and equitable healthcare system. And one thing that's really important to understand about VPIRG is that we are fully independent. Everything we do is truly powered by our members. We have the privilege to answer to people, not profit. And our work, whether it's advocacy or research, education, grassroots advocacy, it only happens because of our member support. And a big part of that is our sustaining members. They're the folks that are giving monthly, allowing us to run strong campaigns, to plan ahead, and also be flexible when something new comes up. So just really want to emphasize and say thank you for your ongoing engagement and support. We really couldn't do any of this work without any of you, so thank you. And we're at a critical point in the legislative session, and the next few weeks will truly determine what actually crosses the finish line. So what we're going to do next on this call is provide some updates and walk through some concrete ways that you can plug in and help. So I'm now going to turn this over to my colleague, Jordan.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Liz. Yeah, so we'll start with a few updates. We'll get into policy in just a moment, but first I would love to give a quick overview of recent events and actions that we've been participating in. Of course, this is not an exhaustive list, but it's a good chunk of the good trouble that we've been getting into. So last month, in partnership with VAP, Migrant Justice, ACLU, and others, we got to stand up for immigrant rights at the opening Vermont Green FC halftime show. We also turned folks out for 2 joint public hearings that took place at the State House in relation to law enforcement action during the March 11th ICE raid in South Burlington. From there, we joined Rights and Democracy for their monthly action call to help spread the word about current immigration policy and response to federal overreach broadly. And then we wrapped up the month of March with a No Kings 3 rally and sign-making party in Montpelier. Thousands came out to the State House lawn to take action despite the very cold weather, so we were very appreciative of that. And so this month, in partnership with dozens of other organizations, we hosted the first ever Changemaker Summit at Harwood Union High School. The summit was a full day of activist trainings and workshops with opportunities to network and meet with other organizational partners. And then we co-hosted a candidate forum in Rutland featuring candidates running for lieutenant governor. We also helped put on a Democracy Lobby Day at the State House, which brought out 60 activists who hosted a total of 25 legislative meetings. The group advocated for pro-democracy and pro-immigration legislation. And then most recently, in partnership with VCV and VNRC, we hosted a plastic detox film screening at the Savoy Theater in Montpelier. The event featured a post-panel discussion with experts in the field, and I can attest because I was there, it was a really good time. So again, we have been pretty busy lately, but I think now we can go ahead and move on to some of our policy updates. So Josh, if you could go to the next slide, that'd be great. And so just a little overview, I'm going to cover the first half and then pass it over to Josh to cover the rest. And then we'll dig into some of those timely actions and upcoming events. And just for your awareness, we're going to keep this legislative update as brief as possible, primarily focusing on the highlights because there is quite a lot here. But if you do have any questions about any of these bills, we're happy to answer them. So either in the chat or via email, which we will share contact information for at the end of this call. Okay, so hopping in with climate and energy, portable plug-in solar, S202, is still moving in the House Energy Committee with strong engagement and continued testimony shaping the path forward. So for those who haven't heard of this bill, S202 would allow portable solar energy generation devices to be installed without a certificate of public good. So what that really means is that anyone could invest in the solar transition without the red tape of permitting or fees or long wait times associated. So that's pretty good. In other news, appliance efficiency standards, H600, are gaining traction and could see movement soon, so stay tuned there. We're in a bit of a waiting period at the moment. Data Center Accountability, or H727, is now in the Senate Natural Resources Committee, which is an important step as we work to ensure large data centers are powered by renewable energy and don't drive up costs for Vermont ratepayers. We're also pushing for a greenhouse gas emissions reporting proposal known as H740, which would improve transparency and data collection by giving the Agency of Natural Resources additional authority to collect data for the greenhouse gas inventory and registry. That sounds like a lot, but it's really important because it would help ensure that we are meeting the state's climate requirements. On transportation, we're advocating for smarter implementation of a mileage-based user fee, which would ensure that Vermont takes a thoughtful, flexible approach rather than rushing into a one-size-fits-all system for every EV driver. And then finally, I know this one's a big update, we're gaining traction on EV charging transparency, so pushing for policies that ensure drivers know if fast chargers are available and operational and how much they would really cost. So that's what I've got for climate and energy, and now I would love to move on to environmental health and zero waste. Awesome, thanks Josh. Okay, so the paraquat ban, or H739, continues to advance with the Senate working towards a full phase out. So this would make Vermont a national leader in protecting public health from this highly toxic pesticide. It's no good at all. Then the Baby Food Safety Bill, or H536, is now in the Senate Health and Welfare Committee, where we're continuing advocacy to reduce toxic exposures for infants and families. And our broader work to reduce plastic and chemical exposure continues, including a strong turnout at our recent plastic detox screening and panel discussion, which I mentioned a little bit earlier. And I think that covers it for what I wanted to talk about here. So Josh, I'm going to let you take it on from this point forward.
Yeah, appreciate it, Jordan. So jumping right into consumer protection and data privacy, we're really focused on advocating right now for the so-called Delete Act, or H211, which would really give Vermonters the right to request that third-party data brokers delete the information they hold on us, often without our knowledge, and often definitely without our permission. This bill continues to be discussed in the Senate Economic Development Committee. We're advocating for passage of this legislation. At the same time, we're navigating data broker industry pressure that's looking to expand the exemptions in this bill that would allow them to deny a consumer's deletion request, and kind of opt out a choice, if you will. And then on the democracy front, we are advocating strongly for the Vermont Voter Protection Act, otherwise known as S298, which continues to advance following some strong testimony in recent weeks as we work to strengthen protections for voters and safeguard our elections from federal rollbacks. As of last week, it passed out of the House Committee on Government Operations and Military Affairs on a 10-0 vote with one absent legislator. And we anticipate a vote happening for this bill on the House floor later this week. So stay tuned to our social medias for any updates on that front. And then moving into the immigration realm. So we originally had a different lineup for this slide, but as of 5 p.m. this evening, the Constitutional Accountability Act, or otherwise known as H.849, has passed into law as of 5 p.m. today. This really marks a major milestone for civil rights protections and upholding our constitutional rights. It passed into law without the governor's signature, but you can find his statement on the bill in the link in the chat. As far as other immigration and policing transparency bills go, some known as S208 and S209, or police or law enforcement identification and sensitive location bills, they both remain active in House Judiciary Committee with expected votes coming by the end of this week or at some point early next week. On S227, this is a bill that would require a judicial warrant before Vermont schools provide sensitive private data about their students to the federal government. This passed out of the House Education Committee on Friday with an 11-0 vote, and we anticipate a House floor vote on this bill as well later this week. And then just rolling back to the before mentioned Democracy Lobby Days is really exciting. We were able to bring more than 60 Vermonters to the State House alongside our coalition partners, a bunch of indivisible groups across the state, the ACLU, the Vermont Asylum Assistance Project, the Fair Share Campaign, Third Act, and a host of other organizations as well, including Vermont Conservation Voters. But we were really happy to be able to host folks from as far out as St. Johnsbury, to the other side of the state of Rutland as well. And there will be a video link from our press conference for that day posted in the chat. And then following up on our last programmatic area, healthcare. The bill we are currently tracking and advocating for, known as the Prescription Drug Discount Card, H577, passed out of the Senate Health and Welfare Committee last week on a 5-0 vote. So lots of good news on VPIRG priority legislation as we head into the final few weeks of the legislative session. Apologies for that. But it wouldn't be a true VPIRG event without a couple good quality calls to action. And so I'm going to walk through these one by one, and I'm going to post a couple of links in the chat. So the first one is to ask House Judiciary Committee to pass S208 and S209. We know that these are slated to have votes coming up on Friday or later next week, and we would really love to encourage our representatives to pass those bills. Following up with that, we have an ask to send messages into the State House to tell our legislators to protect Vermonters from Parkinson's disease by supporting a ban on paraquat, which is a pesticide used pretty heavily in Vermont, and it is directly linked to Parkinson's disease. And then we have another ask, which is tell your senators no free rides for data senators. We are really hoping that this bill would help protect the average Vermonters' electricity rates in future years, especially as we see across the country the rising threat that data centers pose to communities and our environment. And in a similar thread, we're asking folks to help us support greenhouse gas reporting, which is under H740. And really, you can't regulate what you don't know. And so this would really give us, as a state, a really good idea of how much greenhouse gases we are emitting. And then we're also back to H211, the Delete Act. We're asking folks to send personal messages to the senators on the Senate Economic Development Committee to support data privacy by voting for H211. And I see that my hyperlinks did not paste in the chat. So as I pass it over to Jordan, I'm going to make sure to drop those actual links down below. But thanks, guys.
And thank you, Josh. I was just going to mention that about the hyperlinks, but you are already on it. Okay, so as promised, I've got some exciting upcoming events to share, and I hope you can join us for one or a few of them. Liz will be sharing some registration links in the chat, so keep an eye out for those, but we will go ahead and read through some of these. So next Friday, May 8th, the Ice Out Vermont Alliance is hosting an Ice Out rally from 12 to 1:30 p.m. in Taylor Park in St. Albans. Treasurer Mike Pichak, Migrant Justice, Reverend Corellis Bryant, a youth speaker from Vermont Youth Lobby, Bread and Puppet, and Good Trouble Street Choir will all be there. Ben & Jerry's will also be there to hand out ice cream, which I am really excited about. The following day, Indivisible Callus will be hosting a Contra Dance fundraiser to benefit VPIRG, so grab your dancing shoes and join us on Saturday, May 9th from 2 to 5 p.m. at the Capital City Grange in Berlin. On Tuesday, May 26th at 6 p.m., we will be at the Meeting House in Colchester for a gubernatorial candidate forum featuring Amanda Janoo and Allie Richards. We will be there with our friends with Planned Parenthood, ACLU, VCV, and VNRC. So we hope to see you there. And then on Saturday, June 6th, from 1 to 5 p.m. in Burlington, we will be at the Resistance Skills and Strategy Training in partnership with Groundswell Labs, Freedom Trainers, Ben & Jerry's, and Patagonia. Again, the links to those events can be found in the chat, and we will share a follow-up email with all of these details as well. So if you're not catching them here, don't worry. This is intentionally a brief call, but we're going to send a great follow-up email, so don't worry about that. And next slide, please, Josh. So that is what we've got for you this evening. I just want to say thank you so much for joining us for our brief April action call. We hope it has been informative for you, and please do not hesitate to reach out to us if you have any additional questions about the work that we're doing. We will let you go for now because it's a beautiful evening and I'm sure you'd like to get out and enjoy it. But thanks again for joining, and we'll be in touch very soon. So please take care, and we will talk to you later. Have a good night.